Hey guys, today I'm here to do the New York Times by the book tag, which is a tag that has become huge here on BookTube. I'm pretty sure everybody has done it. I wasn't originally going to do this video because so many other people were doing it, but I recently watched Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief's video as well as Vanessa from Chbosky's video and realized how interesting the questions were and decided I had to film it for myself. Now, I'm one of those people that generally has a stack of books on my nightstand, mainly because I always have more than one book on the go at a time, and I also like to have backups. So books that I think I will start next, I like to have at the bottom of the stack, you know, just in case. So as for the books that are on my stack at the moment, first I have Unaccustomed Earth by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is a short story collection which I'm currently in the middle of, and generally speaking the way I like to read short stories is by reading one story at a time and then kind of letting them sit and reading something else in between. So the book I'm currently reading in conjunction with this is The Yoga of Max's Discontent, a novel by Karan Bajaj. This is a literary fiction book that was sent to me by the author for review, and I am currently reading because it comes out in the beginning of May, so look for a review of this coming up shortly. This is the story about a young man who is pretty successful in life and yet feels like he is missing something and ends up going on kind of a spiritual journey to, I believe, the Indian Himalayas. So this sounded really interesting and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm getting real Catcher in the Rye vibes off of it right now, mainly because of the way that he talks about New York City, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it progresses. I do also have two other books on my stack at the moment, the first of which is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm supposed to be reading this for my Back to University project, and it's probably the next thing that I will pick up. I also have a poetry collection on my stack, which is pretty unusual, and this is just Frost, which is the collection of the poetry of Robert Frost. Now, I haven't actually read any 5-star reads in 2016 so far. And I don't know if that's just because I'm getting harsher with my critiques, or if that's just because I genuinely haven't been picking up the right books, but for this question I decided to go with The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I'm not going to go into this because I just filmed a full review, which I will link in the description if you're interested, but I really was blown away by the writing style in this. There are several pages, like my copy is totally dog-eared, and the next time I read this, I'm gonna go through and like write all over it. I just found the writing really, really beautiful. I found the imagery really striking, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about this since. This is a really hard question because there are so many writers, dead and alive, who I would love to meet and just pick their brains, but one person in particular who really comes to mind is Kazuo Ishiguro. He wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Never Let Me Go, and he's an author with a really distinctive literary style who has dabbled in a lot of different genres. So I would love to just pick his brain about how he maintains such a distinctive voice in so many different stories. As kind of a bonus answer, I would also really like to meet Keej Johnson. She is the author who wrote Fudoki, which was one of my favorite books of last year, and this whole story is very much the kind of thing that I'm really interested in writing right now, so I would just love to sit down and pick her brain and ask her how she crafted such an amazing blend of fantasy and historical fiction. I think this has been pretty reflected in my channel thus far, but I read from a really wide variety and range of genres and authors, so not much on my shelves would probably surprise you guys, but one thing I did think was interesting was this volume of Eyeshield 21, which is the first volume of a manga series written by Richiro Inagaki and with art by Yusuke Murata. The fact that this is manga probably won't surprise you guys because you all should know by now I'm just a huge fan of Japanese culture in general, and I believe I've shown manga in a previous bookshelf tour, but I think that the fact that this is a manga about football might be surprising. Probably not surprisingly, in high school I was not into organized sports in the slightest, so I was taking PE class, and as part of PE we had to learn flag football, and our teacher wanted us to memorize a lot of the different positions and some actual plays so that we could, you know, whatever, make believe that we were playing real football. So with all that on my mind, one day in the manga section of my local Barnes & Noble, I came across this and was immediately hooked on the entire series. It's about this young man named Senna who is going into high school for the first time, and although he's never played football in his life, immediately gets grabbed up by the football team because he can run like nobody has ever seen. This is a very quirky series that I would recommend even if you're not a huge fan of football. If you are, I think it's great because the games and the strategies are pretty, I would say, detailed. It's actually really, really character driven, and there are so many characters. By the end of the series, there are so many characters, but they all are given their moment to kind of shine, and I really liked that. So yeah, this is the random book. I've rambled on long enough. I'm a little bit OCD about how I organize my books, and I'm not sure if my categories make sense to other people, but generally speaking, I separate by genre and then kind of try and clump authors together. Once upon a time I tried to alphabetize, and that was just a massive mistake. Before I give you a specific answer for this question, you should probably know that I own over 100 unread books, which is kind of shocking and horrifying, I know. And it's even worse when you know that a lot of them I've owned for a very long time and still haven't read. One of those, for example, is Redwall by Brian Jacques. Jacques? I never know. This is a book I was gifted probably back in middle school, and I still haven't read. This is something I look at every couple of months and think I should pick that up this month, and just never do. So maybe if I don't get around to it by the end of this year, it's just something I should give away. As for the idea of being embarrassed about books you have or have not read, I learned very quickly as an English lit student in college that there are just people that like to name drop books for no real reason other than to make the professor or whoever think that they are so, you know, cultured and intelligent and educated. So it doesn't matter how many books you've read, there's somebody out there who will make you feel bad about not reading whatever book that they think is the world's best, and you just kind of got to get over that. That being said, one book I feel like I really should have read by now is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is a book that pops up everywhere in my life, and yet I still have yet to read it. To kind of keep things on a Bronte theme, for a book that I didn't like, kind of a shocker, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I have read this book multiple times, and I have friends who think this is the bee's knees, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't really appeal to me. I don't see how Rochester can be this amazing romantic figure in so many people's minds. I feel like their relationship is just, there's something off about it that I don't like. I think this is a hard question because it kind of depends on what genre we're talking about, but more generally speaking, I really am drawn to more character-driven books. I don't need a whole lot to go on in my plot for me to like a story, and I think that's kind of why I am drawn towards Japanese fiction, because a lot of the Japanese fiction I've read thus far has been very character-driven. It's kind of about ordinary life, and they're all slower paced and a little bit melancholy, and that just really appeals to me. That being said, I also am really drawn to fantasy stories. I love world building, generally speaking. If a story has really good world building, I will probably like it. And as for stories I steer clear of, romance just generally isn't something that appeals to me in the slightest, and I think that's kind of why I've been drifting away from YA, because even if it's a romance embedded in an epic fantasy tale, sorry, just not really interested. The sense I get is that Obama is pretty well read, and I think he could probably recommend me some good books, so what I'm going to do instead is recommend a book I think all of our presidential candidates should read, and that would be Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. This is a poem, actually, not only about what it means to be a man living in the natural world, but also about what it means to be an American and how we as a people, as an American people, are all hyper connected to each other, and how what affects one person will affect another. And finally, a short answer, because I already mentioned this before, the next thing I will be reading is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Those are all the questions for this tag, and I've ended up talking for quite a while, so hopefully when I edit this down it won't be a massively long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed just the same. I will go ahead and link the original video in the description, and I will put all of the questions down there just in case you want to do this video yourself. But I will not be tagging anybody because there are so many of these videos out right now. I'm just not sure who hasn't done it. But that is all I have for today's video, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are having a good day and that it's starting to feel like spring wherever you are, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye! When my mouth gets dry, I can't speak Japanese. Kobayakawa. That is a very long last name.